Spoiler warning, there will be spoilers in this video about the Vampire Knight anime and manga, so you were warned. For the final time, this is a spoiler warning. You have been warned. At a point in history, meaning around 2008, 2009, showmakers and writers came up with and perfected a secret formula to attract adolescent young girls and to make them addicted to a certain piece of media like they were producing crystal clear meth. If they had a story with immortal mythical beings that look like Calvin Klein models that thirst over a basic teenage girl still in high school, this ensured that any girl within the vicinity would be drawn to it. Extra points if there were two mythical beings from opposing factions fighting over the same basic girl in a love triangle where they are both ancient and the girl is like 16 years old. I don't make the rules. While we think this age might have ended, we still see it continue, but just in different fonts. And in this period, another story rose up to rival the others in the paranormal genre. Look, this story has pretty vampire guys, a dark academy, it has a basic looking main character girl, a pretty vampire love interest, and it has another pretty guy who's a vampire hunter. It has love interests from opposing factions, it has a love triangle. But little was everyone aware how the story would traumatize everyone worldwide with its very unique twist. Matsuri Hino, the creator of the Vampire Knight manga, was very sure what she needed to do. A vampire and a werewolf fighting over the same teenage girl, that has been done before. Two vampire brothers fighting over the same teenage girl, that has also been done before. But you know what hasn't been done? If one of the love interests for the main character is a vampire, and get this, is also her brother. Oh, did I say brother? Also her great-great-grandpa that was resurrected in a baby's body after being waken up from 1,000 years sleep to be raised as the main character's biological brother. I wish someone had warned me. Okay, to summarize the story, Vampire Knight is about a girl named Yuki Cross living at Cross Academy, where the day class students are humans and the night class students are vampires. Yuki knows of the existence of vampires unlike most humans because she was almost killed by a vampire in her childhood. Her adoptive father, Kyan Cross, is the headmaster of the school she attends to, where the night class being vampires is the highly guarded secret. Yuki has never known her biological family, thinking that they are also murdered by vampires the night she was attacked, and the memory of that night was so traumatic that she does not have much of a memory before the age of 5. But on that day, she was also saved by another vampire, a boy named Kaname Kuran, who has stayed by her side, looking after her in a older brother type of way. So she has this attachment and crush on him because he saved her life and is obviously drop dead gorgeous because he's a vampire. And we also have the other guy, Zero Kiryu, whose life was basically uprooted because of a vampire as well. Coming from an esteemed vampire hunter family, Zero's parents were murdered in a bloodbath by the pureblood vampire Shizuko Hiyo. This was because Shizuko Hiyo's lover slash servant that had not fallen into level E was hunted by Zero's parents. So it is explained that this was a ploy by the pureblood vampire Rito that he messed up with the execution list of vampire hunters so that he wouldn't have to marry his fiancée, Shizuka. And a level E in the world of Vampire Knight is a vampire who used to be a human, who's lost all their sanity and has become dangerous to human society. So Zero naturally has an innate hate for vampires since they basically destroyed his life and made him turn into something that he didn't want to turn into. He can't understand why Yuki is so obsessed with them, which is a constant source of tension in their relationship. Before I will get on with any criticism, I'd like to talk about the thing that I actually liked about Vampire Knight. Its character design and artwork is very beautiful, objectively beautiful. Matsuri Hino has this very immaculately detailed line work that makes everything from hair to clothes look flowy, like a constant wind is blowing. The vampires look gorgeous as intended. This is very much a pretty boy story. And I mean, look at this. This is art. This is what I call art. Absolutely gorgeous line work. And some of the outfits that Yuki wears, some of the outfits that Zero wears, slayed. This dress, slayed. This coat, absolutely slayed. Especially in the anime too, I found that the show did a great job of setting this very gothic, dark and mysterious setting, from the long colored cloaks that Kaname wore to the medieval castle-looking academy and the nearby town built by stone, to the heavy and intense organ music that just screams vampires. Some of the soundtrack was so immaculately done, and some scenes were actually nerve-wracking in a way that I didn't expect, where the creators truly brought out the very beastly, dangerous, and scary nature of vampires. Although Yuki almost always narrates and includes her thoughts about the things that are happening, we clearly see that these beings are unlike us, and their beauty masks their truly animalistic and cruel nature. But no matter how atmospheric it is, there are certain times you're taken out of this gothic and dark atmosphere because this is still pretty much a reverse harem show, and it is a shoujo show. Before the story started to derail, around the end of the Academy arc, roughly where the anime ended, the story was actually captivating, and this is captivating beyond just looking at pretty boys. I was most intrigued about Zero's past and his story involving his twin brother Ichiru and the arc involving Shizuko Hyo. This is largely in part because even though Shizuko and Ichiru should have been the obvious villains here, they acted in ways that had a bit more depth to them. Shizuka had a pretty sheltered, isolated, and lonely life due to her status as a pure-blood vampire, and she was treated mostly like an exotic beast. Being kept in a cage most of her life, she felt her first genuine heartfelt connection with a human. And this human was initially thrown into her cage as bait, as food for her. So it is understandable why she was very devastated to see the only man she loved and had a connection to being murdered by the hunters. It was almost relatable how she was acting in a self-justified state of revenge. And as for Ichiru, the reason why he joins Shizuka is because he similarly feels like he does not belong and is isolated, even though he is surrounded by people close to him all the time. By constantly being compared to Zero and constantly being told that he's physically inferior, Ichiru starts to develop an inferiority complex, becomes insanely jealous of Zero, and starts resenting his own family. He finds that despite all of this, Shizuko is the one person that can understand him and his loneliness. Zero not only has to fight what he's becoming, but also has to fight with the fragments of his past chasing him down. While Zero is not a perfect character by any means, I find that throughout the series he's much more honest to Yuki. While he does guard some secrets and most of his feelings for Yuki, it is because he feels that he does not want to drag or crush her with his feelings and the things from his past, and not because he's scheming and he has an ulterior motive. Unlike someone else. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, shall we? And by elephant, I mean incest. So the concept of pureblood vampires and the fact that Kaname is a pureblood vampire is revealed pretty early on in the story. And as the viewer or the reader, we understand that pureblood vampires are other and are a stage above the rest of the vampires. They are so strong and have such a seniority that other aristocratic vampires refer to them with honorifics. And it is mentioned that purebloods have the power to manipulate other vampires to their will. So they are the natural rulers of vampire society, even though most of them would not want to take this title. And you know, the name pureblood is pretty indicative. When the big twist comes and it is revealed that Kaname is Yuki's brother, it is traumatizing, to say the least. But story-wise, it actually makes sense. When Yuki is surprised by this revelation, Kaname clearly explains that this is something only beasts would do, which adds a bit more nuance to the situation, because they are not humans. The morals and values of humans do not apply to these beastly and divine beings who's lived over millennia, where one human life is a speck in the dust for them. You will see other authors just throwing around the word pureblood while not really expanding upon the implications of inbreeding and incest. Well, I'm happy to say that canonically this does make sense.
Something is wrong with me.
Why is that?
Because this whole time, I've been in love with my brother.
What's wrong with that?
It does make sense that a part of vampire society would want to protect their innate traits without wanting to mix them with the traits of humans. Just because a piece of media portrays incest or has incest in it, it does not immediately equal trash, does it? We see a lot of different shows like Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon and even more that deals with themes of incest. So I was expecting the concept of purebloods to be expanded upon in the world of Vampire Knight, to see how exactly these vampires are different. Like, what would happen if a pureblood does not want to breed within the family? What are the consequences? Why do they feel the need to continue a pureblood bloodline if purebloods are basically immortal and live forever? But sadly, besides Shizuka's relationship with her servant, purebloods and the concept of purebloods is not really expanded upon. And it does kind of take you out of the experience when you hear that Yuki's parents, Juri and Haruka, are these divine and ancient beings that have lived over thousands of years, only to be portrayed in the manga later on to be these bickering, sulking, and just like a normal young human couple wearing Japanese high school uniforms. Let's just say, after I read that chapter, the nuance surrounding purebloods was pretty much non-existent. Incest or not though, I could relate to the decision Yuki made at the end of the academy arc, because the choice was not a hard one. A beautiful looking guy with a traumatic past who's been your childhood friend and who would die to protect you, or your brother. Yuki is pretty certain with her choice. She's like, nah, I will go with my brother, let him lie to me some more like he has done up until this point. I will still put my blind faith in him. Oh wait, he's not my brother? So I will have sex with him and have a child with him while I'm still 17. Yeah, you're right, Aido. A kid did give birth to another kid. I love Aido, man. He's like the only person in this universe that makes sense. And for some reason, Kaname will start killing all the other purebloods and Aido's father. Oh wait, psych. He didn't actually kill Aido's father. It was all a ploy, but for what? We don't fucking know. And oh wait, he was actually the one that released Shizuka from her cage? But why? And after all he's gone through, he will basically commit suicide and put his heart in a furnace to create more anti-vampire weapons? What? Long story short, I was very surprised and upset after I finished the anime and to find out that there wasn't going to be a season 3 for Vampire Knight. But I had so many unanswered questions about continuing plot lines, backstories, and characters, which I expected to be answered. And to think that such a popular anime and manga didn't get greenlit for another season had me baffled. But after finishing reading the manga, guys, I understood why Studio Dean cut off the story exactly where the anime had ended. While the story was in no way perfect up until that point, it was still captivating as a story. From Zero's struggle of becoming a vampire, to his relationship with Yuki, to the things going on in vampire society, Zero's past, his relationship with Ichiro and Shizuka, and the mystery of Rito and Yuki's mysterious past was actually pretty well set up to keep the viewer on their toes for 2 whole seasons. But after that, the manga didn't really have much more to offer other than beautifully drawn scenes. There was an attempt of mystery being set up, but there wasn't really an underlying motivation to discover new things. The struggles that the characters had were not as compelling. Zero basically turned into a complete psycho for a while, and Yuki to an absolutely spineless and annoying slime that acted like Kaname's pet. And Kaname, who was always portrayed to be the smart, scheming character who was always like 2 steps ahead of everyone and planned everything out like a chess game, he just acted in ways that made absolutely no sense, just for the shock value. The only reason I kept on reading was to see if Yuki and Zero would ever get together. They eventually do after a series of very unnecessary and convoluted events. Further on in the story, it is revealed that Kaname was the one that released Shizuka from her cage the time that Shizuka went to attack and go on a killing spree to kill Zero's parents. It was explained that he initially did that because he knew that Zero would come out at the end as a weapon to protect Yuki and to kill purebloods. This is such an underwhelming reveal because it makes absolutely no sense. How could he have known that Shizuka would turn Zero into a vampire, or that Zero would later go on to devour his brother to become so powerful? There were very specific things that happened that he could not have calculated at all. It seemed like the mangaka just decided to reveal this based purely on the shock factor, and there were pretty similar reveals throughout the entire manga that ended up looking pretty silly and inconsequential. After going through all the trouble to have Yuki at her side, Kaname just does a 180 and leaves her by herself to go on another killing spree. Again, why? At some point, Yuki takes away Zero's memories and Zero basically forgets all about Yuki, then remembers her again. Why? There was a subplot with another pureblood vampire, Sarah Shirabuki, that was supposed to be kind of like Shizuko 2.0, but her motivation was not much more than to become the vampire queen. So she makes Ichijou basically her slave and hands out these tablets that has her blood in it. And shortly after, she dies from the most stupid death ever, which is getting impaled by the ancestor, which is the ancient anti-vampire weapon. And oh, there's also Maria, who's thirsting after Zero all of a sudden because why? She used to have a crush on Ichiro, and now Ichiro is inside of Zero. So that makes complete and perfect sense. Because, you know, Zero devoured Ichiro. Okay. And all of these plot points feel both rushed and dragged at the same time, making the reader confused as to what the actual fuck is going on in the story and why we should really care. And the absolute foolishness that was at the end of the manga, where Yuki supposedly kills Zero because of absolutely no reason. The reason is that because she loves him too much. And then she proceeds to take her own life so that she could resurrect Kaname so he could live his life as a human. Again, why? Kaname never expresses a want or need to live as a human. More so, he expresses that living so long as a pureblood and seeing all the death and destruction around him has made him tired. So after he decides to give his life to fulfill his purpose to eradicate purebloods, why does Yuki want to bring him back and bring him back as a human? It makes no sense. I will say though, I did find the romance between Aido and Yori very cute, but also kind of sad because Yori never wanted to become a vampire at the end, so she died before all of them. To sum up my thoughts, this anime did have the potential to be a really good story, no matter how formulaic some aspects were, but this just proves to show that even with great art, beautiful characters, good concepts, and an interesting setting, plot and characters always determine the quality of a story. And even after a big incest reveal, you still need your story to make sense, to captivate an audience. Not going to lie though, when I first watched Vampire Knight, I was 16 years old and still in high school, and it did leave a very strong impression on me. I feel like I will always keep chasing that high, that feeling of mystery, darkness, and romance that this show made me feel the first time I watched it. And knowing what I know now, I will never feel it, knowing that the story is a beautifully drawn dumpster fire. And I feel like that is bittersweet. Rest in peace, Vampire Knight. You will still be there as one of the stories I needlessly obsessed over as a teenager to later erase from my memory. Thank you for watching this far of just me ranting about Vampire Knight. If you've similarly been a victim of this anime and manga as I have, I would love to hear your thoughts. If you stopped the anime after the incest reveal and you were like, that's her brother. Or were you one of those precious wounded souls that were curious and just wanted to keep going and insanely regretted it? So let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Once again, it was lovely to have you here, and see you next time.